Yo, what's going on, everybody? It's your boy Potential Unleashed. We are back with another Classroom of the Elite book review. This is Year 2, Volume 5. It is my personal favorite book out of the Year 2 collection. And honestly, it might be in my top 3 favorite books all time. The special exam that they did, I thought it was very unique. Well, at the same time, it was also very simple, but the process behind it was very unique and it was kind of complex at the same time. It's very, very rare you see something so simple get so complicated at the same time. I really enjoyed it. But if you guys enjoy regular anime content, make sure you guys like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you guys never miss out on a new video. Also, I've recently started live streaming on Twitch where I do different reactions to different things. Currently, I am reading the Berserk manga. If you guys want to be a part of that, I will leave it in the description below. Just to clarify, I want to mention that this review, although some of the points I will talk about includes a summary of each of the chapters, I'm not going to go into the specifics because, well, the video will end up being way too long, and at the same time, it's just a review. I'm not going into specifics. But with that away, my name is Potential Unleashed, and let's get into the review. Chapter 1, CHABISHIRA SAE'S Soliloquy. So CHABISHIRA, she gives a monologue about a nightmare she had. It's about her time while she's in high school. She's in class B along with Hoshinomiya. We know that they were friends and that they ended up gaining momentum in order to graduate from class A in the 3rd year. So they had one final special exam in order to finally make it to class A. The exam, it was going very smoothly until a certain motion was raised. And then all of a sudden her nightmare switched from being a happy atmosphere to a very monotone mood, and the class was falling apart. Hoshinomiya, she grabbed CHABISHIRA's collar and started yelling at her, and she mentioned that there was a guy who was important to her and their relationship ended right before it really got to take off. Chapter 2, Signs of an Approaching Storm. Sudo and Kiyotaka, they bump into each other and they start chatting. Sudo wants to keep at least a B academic rating, and Kiyotaka talks about both how his grades and his behavior in the class is constantly improving. They also talk about how Ike and Shinohara, that they started dating, and Sudo asks, "Hey, Kiyotaka, you ever had a girlfriend before?" And Kiyotaka's like, yeah. He asked if it was Horikita, and Kiyotaka replied with no. Then all of a sudden, Kei, she ends up walking up to Kiyotaka, and she's upset because she wanted to walk to school together. However, he left earlier than expected. And Sudo out here looking, he's like, well, that's a weird pairing. What the fluff are you doing here? And so they end up looking at each other. And so Kiyotaka's like, well, we're dating. And so Sudo's like, huh? He's like, you guys aren't dating, but then he accepts that their relationship is actually a thing. As they arrive at school, the 3rd years, they are still glaring at Kiyotaka. This has been a thing ever since book 4.5 and the loss that Nagumo had because of Kiyotaka. In class, CHABISHIRA, she talks about the next few events, how there'll be a special exam this month, and next month there'll be a sports festival in October, which is book 6, and then after that in November there'll be a culture festival, which is book 7. She's saying that there will be different guests for the culture festival, and the premise of that is whoever has the highest sales wins. Because it's easier this way, I switched to getting a summary for the culture festival and reading it for you guys, because if I'm not gonna lie, it was a little bit too much for me to say it from memory. So the rules of the culture festival, the number of private points that each 2nd year class can use to prepare the festival is 5,000 points per person. And so 5,500 points for 1st years, 4,500 points for 3rd years. And so obviously 5,000 for the 2nd years. And so these funds can be used freely. Additional funds are available in exchange for social contributions through voluntary work in student council, etc., and contribution from each active participation in club activities, etc. These will be reiterated in each class when they are finalized. Unused funds will be taken away in order to prevent initial costs and additional funds from being reflected in final sales. Classes 1 through 4th place receive 100 class points. Classes 5th through 8th grade receive 50, and classes 9th through 12th will not have a change in class points. Now, the thing about the points per person is essential. I remember in book 1 when Horikita was like, we can't let pseudo drop out because you never know exactly what you would need somebody for in the future of the series, because looking at this 5,000 points per person, let's say you had a decent amount of people expelled from your class, let's say 5, 6, 7, you'd be at a significant disadvantage. 25,000, 30,000, 40,000 points that you can't use. Now, I'm not necessarily saying that it's wrong not to expel people, because some people are dead weight and some people aren't trying to change or trying to get better and will only be a hindrance for the class. But I just want to mention that's something to really pay attention to. Explanation of the culture festival. It is now public knowledge that Kiyotaka and Kei, that they are dating. Sakura, she's obviously upset because she likes Kiyotaka, and Hisabe ends up talking with Kiyotaka. She's basically saying stuff along the lines of, hey, you know how Sakura feels, you should give her a chance, all that. How could you go out with Kei over trying something with Sakura? And here's how I feel about that. I understand that, like, when it comes to friendships, sometimes it's hard to figure out if it's that you like them romantically or you just like them as a friend. I've had experiences where I tried to go out with one of my friends, it didn't work out, and I've also had something where I was with another one of my friends and it kind of worked out, but at the same time we're not together anymore. And so it's really hard. I can understand, but at the same time, you can't like force somebody to go out with you, even though that you really want them to, because just because y'all are friends, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're attracted to you physically or attracted to your personality. And not saying that he doesn't like or doesn't think Sakura is attractive in any way, shape, or form, but at the same time, her personality, Sakura's very needy, I'm gonna put it that way, and she's very not independent. And so, you know, with his different love interests, I guess for this example, Kei may not necessarily, she's not the smartest person in the world, but she has influence and she has different things that she could do on her own. For example, she is a leader for the girls in the class and can, you know, because she's such a extrovert, she's able to have a lot of connections, which is something Kiyotaka can't do. He's an introvert. And so Sakura doesn't necessarily do anything special in order to, I guess, add any value to Kiyotaka's life. And I'm not saying that's all what relationships are, that adding value and all this, all that, but I'm not going to get into it. But in the context of this story, that's what Kiyotaka needs. 2 weeks later, Sato, she approaches Horikita because she has something that she wants to talk about for the culture festival. And Kiyotaka and Horikita, they are going to be witnesses of what Sato wants to display. So Matsushita, Michan, and Sato, they all are dressed up in maid outfits because they want to do a maid cafe. And Horikita, she surprisingly agrees because Sato came up with the numbers, she came up with how much it costs to do costumes and food, etc. And she said that they could raise the prices or lower the price depending on how sales are. It's very cost efficient and effective. And the class, it has a lot of cute girls in it, so it would obviously be a success. And then Horikita's like, man, Kiyotaka, I have student council duties, so I'm gonna need you to run it. He's like, huh? He's like, why do I have to run it? But at the same time, he ends up agrees. You know, Kiyotaka, he always gets set up by Horikita to have to do different things. Then as he's about to leave, CHABISHIRA, she comes and she wants to talk. She was coming in order to see what the girls were trying to do for the culture festival, where she says, hey, he can learn more here than just what he would in a school environment. So this allow him to grow as a person. And she knows his situation, how he was in a white room, he was sheltered, and doesn't really know exactly how the world works. And so before leaving, CHABISHIRA is like, Kiyotaka, is there any way that I can spare some of your time and we can talk in the future? Chapter 3, 2 teachers in a faded special exam. CHABISHIRA, she announces the new special exam is called Unanimous Vote. And this is my personal favorite exam. It's only for the second years because of how little the amount of students have dropped out. Now, I'm not going to lie to you. Me personally, I think that's kind of stupid. I don't know if Tsukishiro, I don't remember if he was the one to get this to pass to try to get Kiyotaka out, or if they just did it in general. But I feel like it's good. That means that the classes are doing an excellent job of not allowing students to drop out. And so doing this, it's like, I mean, yeah, they're at the same time kind of testing the students, but it's like they're testing them for something that they don't necessarily need to be tested on. That's just my thoughts. And so the way that this works, the class will have different options for a topic that's brought up, and they have to be unanimous in that decision. It's plain and simple. However, the farther into the exam it go, the complex that the questions, they get even harder. Voting, it's anonymous, and at the same time, there's 10-minute intervals after each vote. So if you vote and you guys, don't get a unanimous decision, you get to either take 10 minutes to discuss it, or you can just sit there and not do anything. And also, if a question is a two-part topic, for example, they say, hey, do you guys want additional prior points for a specific student? And if you say yes, then you have to then vote and nominate a student. And they give more examples, but I'm not going to get into it for the sake of time. And so if you can't reach a unanimous decision because you have to do it 5 times in 5 hours, your class loses 300 class points. Now, clearing the exam, it gets you 50 class points, and you can't make contracts or force people through physicality to vote. That's against the rules. And you can still use the 20 million points in order to save someone from being expelled. Hirata and Kushida, they are having a discussion amongst the class, and they decide that Horikita should be the leader if a specific option for the class is divided on something. And so Kiyotaka asks Horikita to discuss the exam later that night. He believes that having one leader decide the outcome isn't necessarily the best idea, because some students could view the leader as making the final decision a dictator. Kiyotaka, he claims that since it's anonymous, then people can oppose without fear, like the person in charge, for example, RYUUEN's class, since he's not necessarily a dictator anymore, but he still rules that class, and it's pretty much whatever he says goes. And so Kiyotaka, he asks, what will Horikita do if only one student is not willing to change their opinion? Because in that situation, it might be best to try and convince the other, 38, 39 people over that one student because of how stubborn they are being. So she asks him to always vote, because you might have to change the opinion of the others over that one student. It just might be easier than that. So Horikita, she decided to come up with a plan that will allow Kiyotaka to answer and vote differently than the others, because it will allow the class to be able to discuss their ideas and give their thoughts. And since the class is 100% unified, Kiyotaka, he's like, well, there's some people that you're going to have to look out for. Koenji, you never know what he's going to do. You don't know what Kiyotaka's going to do. I know that she said she gave him some rules, but he still is a wild card. Same with Kushida. We know how much that she ends up not liking Horikita, not liking Kiyotaka. So you don't know whenever she's going to change her personality. And there's a few others in the class as well. Hirata and Kei, they visit Kiyotaka's apartment after Hirata and Kei, they visit Kiyotaka's dorm after she leaves. He has some more prep work to do. He gives an example for the two, and it's basically something along the lines of, would you guys rather have rice or bread for the rest of the year until you guys graduate? And so they both disagreed on it. So he's saying it's easy to be able to convince 2 people to agree on something and come up with a unanimous decision, but what about 30? So he's assigning Hirata and Kei the job to read the room and control the atmosphere when stuff gets crazy. However, he warns Hirata that after, when there's only less than 2 hours left, then Kiyotaka, he's going to step in, and Hirata can't say anything, because we know how Hirata feels about dealing with different individuals, the class stay together, all that. But Kiyotaka's like, for the point of this special exam, you can't necessarily do that. We have to get a decision, because if you lose 300 class points, that's a lot. So Kiyotaka, he's going to step in and do what he does best. Chairman Sakayanagi, he calls Kiyotaka. We know that he recently got reinstated, and so he apologizes that that there will be different individuals and officials that will be at the culture festival and the sports festival. This is an opportunity that will allow Kiyotaka to get taken back to the White Room. So Sakayanagi advises Kiyotaka not to participate in the sports festival and that he will provide security. At first, Kiyotaka was like, nah, I'm just participate. But at the same time, he's really going to think about this, whether or not it'll be more beneficial if he doesn't participate or not. At the same time, Yagami and Kushida, they are having a discussion. It's revealed that Yagami, he ended up coming up with the decision to make or designate Horikita to be the leader. And so Kushida, she wants to test whether or not this will allow her, this special exam, to expel either Kiyotaka or Horikita, because according to Tsukishiro, there is a possibility that, well, Yagami, he ended up talking to him, and that the question whether you can expel a student is on the table. Kushida, she wants to know what type of guy Yagami is and how his relation to Kiyotaka is a thing. Did they go to the same school? And how the heck that he knows about Kushida's past, even though they didn't go to the same school. So she's determined to expel not only Horikita, not only Kiyotaka, but after learning what type of guy Yagami is, to get him out as well. Chapter 4, Dark Cloud. So Chabishira, she ends up waking up the day of the test. She barely slept. She has dark circles under her eyes, etc. She's struggling because she'll have to proctor the class doing the same test that she ended up failing years ago. And so teachers, they're forbidden to assist during the special exam. So after lunch, the special exam would begin. She ends up walking, going to her class, and Hoshinomiya, she ended up provoking her about having a difficult time sleeping the night before the exam. And so Hoshinomiya claims that because of her blunder a long time ago, Chabishira has no right to aim for Class A. And so after this, the test is about to begin. Kiyotaka gets to the classroom and Sakura approaches him saying, hey, she wants to talk to him about something after school, which is fine. He's sitting in a different spot than he usually would. I believe he usually would sit either close to the window in the back or close to the exit in the back. I think they changed seats in year 2. And so they have different seats. And so he is sitting next to Sato. We get into the special exam. The first test question is what class to face at the end of the year of their 3rd year. Basically, which class do you guys want to fight in your final special exam? And so it gave a certain amount of class points for each. Class A was 100. I don't remember what class D. I think class D was 0 and a class C or class B was 50. And so the first vote, they didn't get anonymously, they discussed, and they ended up picking Class B. It would be the easiest because they're fair and they believe they can actually beat them. And so the second vote, it was unanimous, and they picked Class B. Second question, where did they want to go on the school trip? Their options was Hokkaido, it was Kyoto, and Okinawa. And because of the different locations, people started arguing over it. If it's too hot, too cold. I want to swim in the wintertime. I'm tired of swimming. And it's also if it's been places that they've been before. So out of the 3 options, Hokkaido and Okinawa, it got most of the votes. And so Horikita, she was like, all right, we decided, since the representatives play rock, paper, scissors, whoever wins, wins. And so it ended up being Hokkaido that ended up winning. Another one I wanted to read because, like I said, it's a lot. So this is question 3 of the class poll. It says option 1, for half a year in exchange for all private points received by all students per month becoming 0, 3 random students will each be given a protection point. Option 2, for half a year in exchange for all private points received by all students per month being halved, choose 1 student to give a protection point to. And then option 3 says for half a year, the bottom 5 students in the next written exam will receive 0 private points. So basically, it's either save 3 people from being expelled, but at the same time, all private points are brought to 0. Option 2 is for half your private points, you get to save 1 student. And option 3, well, 5 students will receive 0 private points. But it's not just that. Let me put it this way. It's the bottom 5 students. For the third option, different students like Ike and Sato, they objected to sacrificing the 5 lowest grades. They're mainly talking about themselves because they would be without private points for a long time. Hirata, he agrees with option 1 because he likes the possibility of saving a lot of people. And then Keisei, he likes option 2 because he wants to give the protection point to their leader, because he believes different people will try to target their leader, and if their leader ends up getting expelled, then that would be a tremendous blow for the class. So the results of this question, they ended up picking option 2, and then the person that they ended up voting for is Horikita to receive that protection point. Question 4, it says in the next written exam, do you guys want higher difficulty, larger penalty, or lower reward? Then voted for higher penalties because Horikita said, if you guys study, you guys will be fine. Plain and simple. Don't want to get too into that. And so there's an hour into the exam, they're already on the final question. Now this question is what throws everything for a loop. It says, will you expel a classmate for 100 class points? And Kiyotaka, he's like, well, depending on your grade, if you're in your third year and however many class points you needed, you might vote yes. And so in this option, 37 people voted no and 2 people voted yes. Now, Kiyotaka's one of those people voting yes because, what's her face? Horikita, she said that she wanted him to vote the opposite each and every time. And so the problem is with this question, the different people's priorities, because some people, they value friendship, and then other people, they value class points. With it being anonymous, you can vote for whatever you want without different people judging you or getting caught. And so Koenji, he stated that he voted yes because he get more class point every month, and that will, well, with them getting more class points, he would get more private points every month. Simple as that. And so I'm going to get into this a little bit. I want to really wait because I want to go more in depth about this special exam. But basically, there are certain people who don't necessarily need to graduate from class A to be successful, and Koenji's one of them. So he's probably going to want to live his life as lavish as possible, and in order to do that, you need as much private points as possible. So with question 3, making Horikita protected, Koenji, he agreed to cutting his private points in half because he saw as Horikita being there, she protected him and it was more beneficial to him. But in this situation, there's no merit to just cutting his private points in general. Well, I say cut his private points, but there's no merit in him not getting rid of a student in order to boost his private points. I made a mistake. So what Horikita does, in order to make up for the points that Koenji would lose, she ended up saying, hey, I'll end up paying you the extra private points that you would lose with a student getting expelled. And he's like, hey, I can do that. So he switches his vote to it being 38 people not in favor of expelling people and then 1 person to expel. And so after this situation, people are starting to get furious. They're like, why, is one person still voting to expel someone? So Kiyotaka, he does a signal. He's like, and then Hirata and K, this is where their job is to do crowd control and to be able to really dive deep and figure out who keeps voting that one person in favor of expelling someone. So Horikita claims that, hey, she knows who the final person is, but she won't reveal it because it could be very damaging to that person's reputation. And I think that's smarter for her, I'm not going to lie, because it's only in your second year. I could see if it was in the third year and, you don't really have much time left, but she has a whole another year and a half and to deal with this. So that's really important as well. And so as readers, you guys, know who it is, and I'm not going to say it in this exact moment, but if they start running out of time, her just like, all right, I'm a snitch. She says, I'm gonna tell people who exactly it is. And Kiyotaka, he goes around, he's like, hey, he asks different people, do you know who it is? He specifically mentions Hirata and Kushida, and Rita's looking at him like, what the fluff are you doing? And trying to figure out his intentions. And so he keeps on asking Kushida specifically, he's like, yo, what are your thoughts on the matter? If you have any, anything comes to mind, you should speak up about something. And so based off of this, we can confirm that, well, I guess the highest person that we're suspicious on is Kushida. For a while, the results are the same. It keeps on being 38 people saying no and 1 person saying yes to expelling someone. And so because of it constantly happening, CHABISHIRA, she's starting to get a little bit of PTSD. And so she explained everything that happened. Well, not everything, because as a teacher, she can only give so much without assisting her students. So she explained what happened to the past. She revealed that she took the test and that they should make a decision with no regret. And so even after hearing this, the results are still the same, 38-1. And so Kushida, she was using this exam because it's the best way and one of the only options in order to get a classmate expelled, specifically either Kiyotaka or Horikita. Chapter 5, ICHINOSE HONAMI'S choice. So they're on the final question, same as Class C, and it's the exact same question. 39 people voted not to expel someone for class points, and 1 person voted yes. And so the person who voted in favor of expelling a classmate is Kenzaki. And so he believed that getting class points is very essential because they were the only class that was regressing. They had fallen from class B, and sure, they were united, but in terms of the academics and physical ability, they weren't necessarily the best class in anything. He believed that they were playing a defensive battle and that they never catch up with other classes. RYUUEN, HORIKITA, and SAKAYANAGI, they would vote out people without hesitation in order to gain class points. He also mentioned that this probably won't be the last exam where someone being expelled is on the line. And so he's like, well, what will happen if that choice happens then, where there's no option? He said it needs to be a chance where we can try and gain class points as much as possible. And so he's like, something needs to change, but nobody's agreeing with him. And I'm not going to give my thoughts. Like I said, I'll talk about the decisions that these people made in a future video. I plan on releasing that video sometime next week. So ICHINOSE, she claims that selling out a classmate for 100 points is never the answer. And Kenzaki, he continues to be the single person to vote against them. And so they can't reach a unanimous decision. He's like, hey, I'm willing to be the person to get expelled for this because he wants to sacrifice himself in order for the class to change. And so Hoshinomiya, she steps in and she talks about a little bit about her past and how she took the same test. And she's like, if they were in the third year and needed to get in class A, what would they choose? And so Kenzaki, he believed it's unrealistic to reach class A without ever losing any classmates. Maybe true, maybe not. But the reason why ICHINOSE is so adamant on keeping her class is because of a conversation she had with Kiyotaka. I believe it was in book 11 and a half. She basically said he said to remain loyal in her decisions and loyal to her classmate. So she claimed that she wants to keep all her classmates. And so since he said to remain stalwart in her decision, she's going to try her best to keep all her classmates together until graduation. So in the end, ICHINOSE, she ends up persuading Kenzaki, and so they ended up making the vote 40 unanimous in not having someone expelled, and so they end up clearing the exam. Chapter 6, RYUUEN KAKERU'S choice. So the final question, same as the others, they were in, it's not exactly 50-50, but they were kind of in 50-50. And I'd say RYUUEN was actually a calm and collected leader in this aspect. He went to the podium and asked who voted out for expulsion. Some people raised their hand, exposed, and so some people didn't. The second vote changed from 50-50 to more of a 70-30, not in favor of expelling anyone. And so RYUUEN, he actually wasn't giving orders and wanted the class to vote on their own, because it was believed by Ishizaki if RYUUEN gave out orders, then they would just vote off what he said. And so Kaneda was one of the people who believed cutting off people was valid. And so RYUUEN's like, well, what would happen if I said, let's vote you out? And he's like, well, you're not going to vote out anybody who you believe has value. And RYUUEN agrees. RYUUEN, he comes on and says, he's like, hey, I'm in agreement. I think we should expel someone. He says, but however, since most of the class is against it, and this class poll or class unanimous decision, it is a democracy. And so he said he's going to try and steer people into voting against having someone expelled, which I was shocked by this. I'm not going to lie, but it makes sense. It shows his growth as a leader, listening to his subjects, I guess, their decisions, and it's pretty cool that he's doing that. And so since the votes weren't getting anywhere, Nanami Yaba, I believe that's their name, they claimed to vote to expel someone and expel someone that people wouldn't really give a fluff about leaving. They picked Ibuki. Ended up not happening. Kind of happy. She's a little bit annoying, but at the same time, I like her as well. Votes keep going, and it remained 80-20 of people not wanting expelled. Then it got down to exactly 35 people saying no, and then 5 people saying yes. And so Tokito revealed that he kept on voting in favor so that he could get rid of RYUUEN because of the different things that happened in the past. And RYUUEN, he welcomes the challenge. He's like, hey, if you want, try to convince the people to expel. He said, however, if you do that, it's futile. Basically, because now that he's outed him, if RYUUEN sees the different people votes starting to change, well, first off, he's just gonna vote, hey, not in favor of expelling someone, because at the same time, no matter how many people vote in favor of it, if he knows he's going to be targeted, there's no merit in him voting yes, because people will just switch to voting him out, and he doesn't want that. So Tokito, he fluffed up by revealing that who he's going to try to expel. And the reason why this is important is because there's an option to let the time run out, but you would lose 300 class points. So it's not really an option, because when you look at it, Class A is already far ahead. It's already a struggle to try to catch up to them as is. But if you let the class, let the time run out and then you lose class points, you definitely aren't clashing up to Class A at all. And so RYUUEN, he makes up a good point as well. There might be some people who would vote against him being expelled. And so he says that if we end up voting for that, we could switch the narrative and have us pick you. And are you sure that there's not multiple people, or at least one person who is willing to save you? Because he's proven that RYUUEN is capable and has done different things, and Tokyo hasn't. And so not everybody knows about the situation with Kiyotaka, but Ishizaki, Albert, Ibuki, Katsuragi, they know about it. And there's other people like Komayina and Hiyori who wouldn't vote him out. And plus there's probably some others. And so the class ended up switching their vote from 35 to 5 to 38 to 2, where Katsuragi revealed that him and Tokito were the two remaining people voting in favor of expelling someone, because Katsuragi, he believes that everyone in his class is needed to get to Class A, especially Tokito, because the fact that he shot RYUUEN proved his worth and proved that he's someone that we should probably pay attention to and listen to. And so the 4 people when it was 35 to 5 that were voting in favor of expelling was Hiyori, Albert, Ishizaki, and RYUUEN. He had them do that for fake votes. And so in the end, Tokito, he had to succumb to RYUUEN, and they ended up voting 40 to 0 not in favor of expelling someone, so their class ended up completing the special exam. Chapter 7, Sakayanagi's ARISU'S choice. So Class A, they have to lead on all the other classes. They decided not to vote out anybody in favor of gaining class points. Could they have? Yeah, but at the same time, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. They have to lead, so what's the point of trying to change something that's been working? Plain and simple as that. Chapter 8, HORIKITA SUZUNE'S choice. So they're the last class that has yet to make a unanimous decision. I mean, they don't know this because they're still in the classroom, but as a reader, we know this. And so they're still stuck with that daggone stubborn one person making this vote. And so Kiyotaka, he came to the realization with the only options left is you have to change the decision of everybody else in the class in order to make them in favor of getting somebody expelled. Votes are starting to change little by little in favor of exposing, and so we're coming up on less than 2 hours left. So Kiyotaka, he started to make his move. He said that if they expose the traitor before voting to expel someone, and this is why he didn't do it, similar to the RYUUEN situation, that if that person was exposed, they would do their best to keep switching the vote, and they never get to a unanimous decision. So he decided to wait to reveal the traitor until after they got a unanimous decision of voting in favor of expelling someone, and they did. Finally, all 39 students voted in favor of someone. And so now they're at the point where they had to nominate different people in order to get expelled. And there weren't a lot of nominations. I know Hirata was one. I'm not going to get into the details of each and every one because it's important, but it also ain't that important. I'll let you guys know when the important people were voted upon. We get to the point where the traitor is revealed, and Kiyotaka publicly says that it's Kishida, and the entire class, they're in shock. They're like, nah man, you're just lying. And so Kishida, she starts crying, she starts playing the victim, and so Kiyotaka exposes the hidden personality and the different things that she did in middle school. Kiyotaka ends up, he gets mad. Like, a lot of people are starting to get mad at him for going after Kushida, or he ends up bringing the class poll last year about how Yamaguchi ended up working with her in order to try to get him expelled. He also explains the deal of him and her that they have and how she ends up giving him private points. He also explains that the contract of him and her having to where he has to give her private points each and every month. I don't remember exactly what book it was, but he ended up making a contract with her. And Kiyotaka, he's like, hey, I got the recording of this on my phone. And he asked CHABISHIRA to get his phone to play the recorder for the class. he can't use his phone, but where in the rules did it say a third party couldn't? And so Kiyotaka keeps trying to press the situation. Kushida tells him to shut up. She's starting, the mask that she has, it's starting to come down slowly but surely. And so he ignored her, and he's like, I'm still talking my ear. She ain't about to try and finagle your way out of this. And so she said that Kiyotaka ended up unconsensually touching her, which he did touch her, but she ended up setting him up in order to do that. And she has the uniform with the prints on it. And people start looking at him in disgust. And Kay's like, did he actually do that with her being the girlfriend? But at the same time, well, she became his girlfriend afterwards, but still. And so he claims that Kushida is lying because he's like, well, if I actually did something like that, number one, you would have just reported to the school immediately. And number two, would the prints after all that time still be there? And so he exposed her working with RYUUEN and betraying the class as well. And Kushida, she started losing it. She ends up running to him, grabbing him by the collar, and asks why he ended up betraying her. And this is probably my favorite artwork in the entirety of the series, because you can see Kushida visibly flustered and frustrated about the situation at hand. Kiyotaka, the epitome of his character, just sitting there chilling, and he's like calm and collected. He's just staring at her, and he's like, okay, you're gonna do this, but I'm gonna keep talking. It's just such a great image. And it's plain and simple why he's doing this. It's because she forced their hand in allowing for expulsion to be the only option. So after all this, Kushida, she admits that everything was true. He provokes Kushida into revealing the different class secrets that she's kept. She talked about Kei, Mashida, and Mori laughing at Shinohara and Ike going out, how Michan has a crush on Hirata, and how Ruka, she ends up calling people by different nicknames in order to hide the fact that she doesn't have any friends. The class, they are ready to expel Kushida after all this. However, Horikita intervenes. She says that Kushida, even how nasty she is, she believes that she's worth more than 100 class points, and that she's given them well over 350 class points by herself. And this is kind of a problem because Horikita, as a leader, she said that she voted off the traitor, and now she's retracting that statement. How can somebody trust a leader like that? And so Kiyotaka realized that Horikita is about to name drop someone in order to expel them for being a hindrance to the class, where he ended up taking over, and he dropped Sakura's name for two reasons. Number one, because for Horikita to be the leader of class in the future, she needs to have good trust with the class, and so he has to salvage whatever she has left in order for her to rebuild after this exam. And number two, because she's not good enough to convince the different people who to actually expel yet. In the end, multiple people get put on the chopping block. I'm pretty sure Haruka, being Sakura's best friend, she ended up stepping up. Kiyotaka got put on, Horikita as well. And so in the end, time was running out. They only had like less than 20 minutes left. And so Sakura, she ends up yelling like, hey, vote me out. And she orders Haruka to do it. So in the end, Sakura gets voted off. And so the class, they end up gaining 150 class points, and Sakura was expelled. They got the 50 for completing the exam, and then 100 for voting somebody out. And so she ended up leaving with a new look, hairstyle, ponytail, no glasses, not hiding her true self. And this is what she wanted to show Kiyotaka when she talked to him before the exam. She had to show him how she's trying to improve. Chapter 9, Farewell to the Past. So Chabishira and Kiyotaka, they talk. Apparently her class in the past was only 73 points back from class A, and so expelling someone would allow them to graduate from class A. And apparently she was going out with the leader figure of her class. He was a mixture of Ike and Hirata. And so when the expulsion option came, the only person who objected his self-sacrifice was Chabishira, but at the same time nobody else was willing to take, like, wanting to get voted out. And so eventually the time ran out, and they ended up running out of time, and 300 class points was deducted. And so that's why Chabishira was the one to prevent that class from reaching class A. And she wants to know what Kiyotaka thought about the exam and if she made the right decision. He's like, well, I don't really know if there's a correct answer to that. He chose Sakura because she was the weakest link of the class, and she hadn't done anything. Did he wish that he could have saved her? Absolutely, but it had to be done. And so he wasn't expecting Horikita to end up trying and wishing to save Kushida. That was out of the plans that he had calculated. And so he knew if Sakura was the one to be expelled, that Haruka, she wouldn't allow it, and so Sakura had to be the one to convince her. And so he says, hey, I'll be harsh, I'll be a demon, but somebody needs to have this role in order for the class to succeed. And so she wonders how many people he's abandoned to reach this level of emotional apathy. It's been a lot. And so this book was for CHABISHIRA's growth. She wants to be a good teacher that will allow her students to graduate from class A. And so now that this class unanimous exam is over, she can get a breather and she can actually do her role in being a great teacher. Really good book in my opinion. It's my personal favorite special exam. It's like I said, it's so simple, and yet because it's so simple, it's so complicated at the same time. Next week, or I can't exactly give you guys a date. I do have a lot of videos I want to do. I've been pumping them out like crazy. I do want to do an in-depth video talking about the class, what this exam was, the unanimous special exam, and see if it was the right decision that the different classes made. I don't necessarily think there was a right or wrong choice. I would just talk about it from what I would do if I was a student in the class. But thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know how you guys felt about this book in the comment section below. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Hit the notification bell so you guys never miss out on a new video. Follow me on Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat, and TikTok is on the screen in the description below. Thank you guys so much for watching, and don't forget to unleash your potential.